Today we're going to talk about independent versus dependent variables. What are variables? Variables are just things that change. The two types we're going to talk about are independent, which are the predictors, and dependent, which is the criterion. An independent variable is a variable that we think causes something else. It's also called a predictor variable because it's thought to predict the outcome. It is the manipulated variable. In other words, it's what the experimenter changes in the experiment to test for an effect or an outcome. Only experiments can have true independent variables. Correlational studies do not. This will be discussed in a later video. Now, the dependent variable is the outcome variable. It depends on the manipulation of the independent variable. It is measured. This is also called the criterion. It is what we think is affected by the manipulation of the IV. Basically, the dependent variable is what happens after the IV is applied. Here's an example of IV and DV. If I were to conduct a study with two different types of study guide to test and see if the GRE score is affected, the study guide, I have two here, the Manhattan Prep and the ETS official study guide for the GRE. These things would be the independent variable would be the type of study guide. Now the dependent variable would be the score, the GRE score. So basically we want to see, are one of these going to help GRE score become higher. So the study guide is the predictor and the outcome is the score. Now here's more examples of independent variables and the dependent variable. Now here we want to see, does education, gender, age, and competence predict salary? So these are actually not true IVs because you can't manipulate these. You wouldn't, basically you wouldn't be able to manipulate education. Somebody just has a level of education. It wouldn't be ethical to try to make somebody go through college to get a degree just so to have it for your study. Also, gender is something that you can't really manipulate. You can't look at somebody one day and say, hey, today you're going to be male or today you're going to be female. It's just a pre-existing thing that you put people into groups for. And also age is something that you can't change. And competence, this would be level of competence like within a job or something like that. People have the skill or they don't have the skill. And trying to see if these things predict salary. Now salary would be the dependent variable because it would be the outcome. A little note about graphing independent variable and dependent variable would be the independent variable would go on the x-axis. This is the horizontal axis right here. You probably remember it from math course. And the dependent variable would then be on the y-axis. So when you go to graph these, you have to remember to do it this way is going to work out for you. So in summary, variables are just things that change. Independent variables are called predictors, and they're manipulated and are thought to be the cause. A true IV, though, is manipulated by the researcher, but an IV can also be naturally occurring. Dependent variables are outcomes and are measured. These are what happens after you add the IV. Typically, when graphing, the IV is placed on the horizontal x-axis and the DV is placed on the vertical y-axis.